You're watching another Nerd Stalker. Welcome to another Nerd Stalker interview. Good morning. This is Greg Gloria, aka Social Greg on Twitter for the Nerd Stalker Media Network. Today we talk with Martin Hill, inventor and president of Better Family Incorporated, live from Florida, right?
That's right.
And the story is a great Father's Day story, and it's a little bit different than what some of the stories we cover here on Nerd Stalker. But Martin's going to talk about how he got on the path to be an entrepreneur while he was a stay-at-home dad. So anyway, good morning, Martin. Thanks for joining us on Nerd Stalker live from Florida here, man.
Yeah, thank you. Morning to you.
Yeah. Well, let's just get into this. Do you tell the Nerd Stalker audience a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so I'm originally from Northeast England, hence the accent. I've lived over in the States for about 14 years. I lived in Australia for a while. I met my wife back there. We've made our home here in Florida. I've got an engineering background. I'm an electrical engineer by trade. And that's where my creative side and my problem solving side always came into play. So, I've always been a serial inventor. I've got a garage full of things that I've made over the years, and some of them stick and some of them don't. And the one that we're going to talk about today really sticked. And we'll get into that in a minute, but that's a little background on me.
Well, it's interesting. So you talked a little bit in the last piece about really, kind of being an inventor, always been an inventor. Did this kind of take hold in your earlier days while you were growing up? Or was this really kind of after you kind of coalesced your education at school?
Yeah, no, it's since I was a kid. Every year, my parents would buy me something new. And the first thing I do is I get a screwdriver and I take it apart. If they bought me a radio controlled car, I'd want to make it faster. That's what I do. And they'd be sat there looking at me going, "What are you doing?" I'd have bits everywhere, but it'd go back together and it'd be quicker. I'd find out ways to do stuff. And I was a serial Lego builder as well, I think, ever since I was 5-year-old. That was my thing, Lego. So I've always made, I've always invented. And that's what definitely led me on the engineering path and the creative path. So always been an inventor.
Wow. So yeah, let's talk also about, and as you kind of went through this, looking at your story is that, you became a stay-at-home dad. I mean, that's a big decision for any family. I mean, anyone staying at home these days, usually it's a 2-income deal in most cities and most places you live, right? So you want to tell the audience a little bit about that story, how that kind of unfolded.
Yeah. So I kind of just fell into that. My wife and I, we were living in Missouri at the time, prior to us moving down to Florida. We love the ocean. We love the beach. We love the waves. Surfing's one of my things that I do to relieve stress. And, we always had this dream about one day being near the beach. So with my parents being over in England and my rest of my family, California didn't make sense for us because it was such a huge trip for them to come and visit. So we just kind of started looking around one day just for fun. And then things escalated. All the planets kind of aligned. And next thing I know, my wife comes home and goes, "Well, we've been talking about this." She goes, I've got approval to move with my company and we can do it. So we had a how old was my girl, right? That 2-year-old and a 3-month-old. So we decided to go for it. This is it. We're going to move to Florida. We didn't know anybody. My wife had her job. I had to quit my job. So when we moved down to Florida, that's where I became that stay-at-home dad all of a sudden. I was getting us settled into our new life down here while my wife got straight back into her job. And I was juggling moving houses and looking after a 3-month-old and a 2-year-old. And that's where this product that I created at the time basically was birthed from. So not having enough hands. That is it. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty ingenious. But we'll talk about. I want to hear more about what your typical day looks like. But let's talk about this product you came up with while you needed more hands, called Beebo.
Yeah, so the Beebo, it's a freehand bottle holder. This is my product. This is the packaging. You throw it over your shoulder. You insert your baby's bottle. You get your little baby comfortable. This is Carlos. Carlos travels all over the place with me, and then you rotate. So this is on a rotating mechanism. And what that does is it frees up your hand. So what I found was I never had enough hands, and I came up with this idea of getting out of that situation where you've got a baby in a bottle and you can't do anything else, to having something that holds the bottle in place. So I came up with this idea of a rotating mechanism that went over your shoulder. There's ribs on the underside of it for grip and for cooling. This is really flexible, so that it just kind of conforms to the shape of your body. I made this removable on the ratcheting mechanism for cleaning, and it just kind of grew from there. The first one I made in my garage to get the ball rolling was this. This was my very first prototype, which hopefully will be in a glass case on the wall one day. But I made this in my garage. That's the type of stuff I do when I've got free time. So
That's cool.
yeah, I got a cell phone clip, the ones that clip onto your belt that rotate. I got one of those. I stripped it down to just the rotating ratcheting mechanism. I bought a block of foam from a furniture store. I carved it hand carved it and shaped it to this shape that I created. It's very circular for obvious reasons, where it goes and what it looks like and what babies are used to in that area. So I found this silicone material in Target. It's a drying mat that you put next to your sink for glasses. Yeah. So I found that. I wanted the ribs because it's very important for grip, but also for cooling. So when you put it over your shoulder, it creates little channels of air so you can't get hot. So I made this, and then I'd have people coming over my house, and I'd be sat back with my little boy. I'd be reading him a book. We'd be having family dinners together. I'd be eating my food while feeding him. And people just started telling me that's ingenious. So that's kind of where the Beebo was born. That was it. Yep.
Well, you took. I was reading your story, and it took a while for you to really enter the market, because I think, from what I read, and you might want to correct me on this, I thought it was like you came up with the idea initially around 2011 or 12 or something like that, and then you've kind of did a lot of due diligence. Can you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I came up with the idea when my little boy was about 7 months, I think. He was having issues feeding. He didn't want to finish his bottle. And I found that his most relaxed moments in life was when I was reading him a book. So that's where this whole idea came from. I was like, you know what? If I had a free hand, I could hold a book and read to him while feeding, and that might work. So initially, I kind of propped up bottles and things with things that you're not supposed to use around a baby, and found that he ate so much better when I'd read a book to him. He'd look at the pictures, he'd listen to my voice, his mind would wander, and he'd suck his bottle dry every time. So I was like, okay, I need to make a consistent answer to this, problem that I've found. And that's when I made that prototype. That was when he was 9 months. Then I kind of used it for 3 months until he grew out the bottle. Then I had friends asking me if they could have one and if I'd make one for them, because some of them had babies. So at that point, I'd already got the patent process going, because so many people had seen it and said, that's amazing. Are you going to do something with it? So patenting is super important, which we can get into in a bit. But that just kind of where the road started, I guess. And then you've got to go through trial and error of getting the ratcheting right. I hired a company to take my prototype and make it into a fully functional, mass producible product. That takes a while. You've got to find the right material. We changed the shape of it for ergonomic reasons, so it was comfortable. We had to find the right softness of foam here so that it would take all the different size bottles on the market, because there's 10, 15 different size bottles. So they range from skinny ones like this to big fat ones. And we had to be able to incorporate all the different size bottles. So that's why this is made out of a soft foam. So yeah, it's a long process. Then you got to find the right materials. Then you got to work on the packaging. You got to work on your website. You've got to work on your patenting. And it's this really long process if you do it right.
Wow. And I think,
me being
yeah.
Yeah.
Especially
me being type A and an engineer, I wanted it right. So
well, and this is a consumer product, right? So there's other considerations you have to take in account as well, right? There's safety concerns, probably, if there's anything. I don't know if there's any, but
so all the material has to be tested by an independent laboratory, especially because it's around babies. There's all the concerns that the parent have. BPA is a big one. It's got to be BPA free, phthalates free, lead free, PVC free. So you have to find these materials that are functional, but also fit into the safety side of things. So that's one of the many joys about working with a baby product. Yeah.
Well, you know, it's interesting because it went from an idea that you created because of necessity, really,
Yep.
to a real product. But I mean, that's a pretty big leap of faith from your standpoint, your family standpoint, that, you know, this product may have legs. So, I mean, what was that decision making like, you know, because what you just explained doesn't exactly cost $2.
Oh no, it doesn't. Anything but. You know, it wasn't really a "are we going to do it? Yes" situation. It didn't mold to be that type of decision. It just grew. That's all I can say. It just grew. 1 minute I had an idea. Next thing, I was getting amazing feedback, and well, all right, maybe I should patent that idea. So I started the patent process. Then I'd start getting feedback from people and saying, you know what, if that was my big thing. I made 4 more of these prototypes, and I give them to friends and family and work colleagues that had babies. And I said, give me all the negatives. Don't give me the positives. I want the negatives. Tell me things that you don't like about it that you feel could be better. So that's where we started taking all those notes. We, as in me, because it's basically I've done this all myself. I started redesigning around all of this negative feedback, which is, it's quite hard to hear when you've got this idea and you think it's great, and then people start going, what about this? If you change this, it'll be better. You know, why don't you tweak this? Maybe it's a bit too soft, and you spend days and weeks and months working on something to then get it ripped apart, but it's inevitable. It has to be done. You know, that's a huge part of product development, is taking a product that you think is right and then basically re-engineering it, you know, reverse engineering it back to its basics, and then redesigning it and see if it's come back in a better functionality and look. So, yeah.
Wow, it just grew.
It did. It just grew. And then, you know, then I was hiring a product development company to take all of this feedback that I had and make my little prototype, which was, you know, cut by scissors and filed and sanded in my garage, and make it mass producible, because at this point we had so much positive feedback from people that were using it that we decided, you know what, we're gonna do something with it. And my wife and I, we funded this venture all by ourselves from day one. We've got no investors. You know, we've been smart with our money over the years, I guess. We live below our means, you know, below our income. We don't live in an affluent lifestyle, really. We could drive better cars, we could live in a bigger house, but we don't need it, you know, and that kind of helped us get to where we are today and own our company 100%. And, you know, and give us the situation that we're in today, where it's ramping up great, and the sales are exponentially growing month by month, and it's, you know, it's taken off. And I think we've got something that's providing something that's really positive to a family. You know, we've got a product that allows parents to enhance that time of bottle feeding and make it better. Have family dinners, read to your baby, take care of an older sibling, and just make that moment better. And there's nothing else like it on the market. So that's where the patent is so important.
Well, let's shift to business, I think, because that's a good segue into the business portion I want to ask you about. I mean, you did a lot of effort into product development, like any engineer or any good engineer would do, and then got feedback, iterated the product. But how did you learn the business side? I mean, was that kind of consulting with your wife and yourself, or did you just like read? Did you watch 10,000 episodes of Shark Tank or something like that?
I think it was more like 15,000 episodes of Shark Tank. I think I've seen every episode of Shark Tank at least 4 times, and that's not an exaggeration. It's an amazing show that I really do believe has changed the face of entrepreneurs in this country. It's opened people's eyes again. People get excited about watching that show, and you see people on there and you go, I can do that. It lights that fire, that entrepreneurial fire. I think it's been lit again and fueled. So, we the business decisions, we do a lot of research. Google's a wonderful thing, and anyone that I meet along the way, along this journey, I give back a lot of what I've learned, because I know things come around in a circle. If people want some advice or got some questions about launching a business, I'm always willing to answer them, because I know I've asked those questions in the past, and I believe in give and take. I think it's a wonderful thing of what entrepreneurs and inventors are doing now. We're growing again, and like you mentioned, I think Shark Tank's a big part of that. I do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they've done a great job of, here in San Francisco, we're quite spoiled, actually. The ecosystem itself with all these tech events and everything kind of helps promote exactly what we were saying to the local community, the feeling of entrepreneurship. I could do it. I'm listening to this guy. Boy, that's very motivating. But Shark Tank actually brought it to the everyday crowd, I think, because their reach is so big on networks, right? Still, I mean, people still watch TV. So, the point to try to bring that same spirit that's kind of here in San Francisco, I've always felt, to outside, it was incredible. I mean, that's a great show, and I'm glad that you got a lot of learning out of it. I wanted to ask you is, so, let's stay on the business track here and talk about, like, you got the product going, you released it recently, but I mean, are you building it locally, or is that going to be outsourced overseas, or what does that look like?
Sure. So, I think, like every single person that invents a product here in the States, you want to make it in the States. That's everyone's goal. But unfortunately, in reality, most products are hard to make over here at a cost of production that gets you to your MSRP that you need to be at. It's tough. It's very, very tough. This 3.5 year process of taking it from here to here, a good chunk of that was manufacturing. What am I going to do? How am I going to make this? Where am I going to make it? I interviewed so many people over here, and I was going down roads that it just, the money finance side wouldn't make sense. No one's going to pay $100 for this product. No one's going to pay $100 for it. And that's kind of where it was leading to. Maybe we can trim 10% off, but still, it just wasn't going to work. I always had this MSRP in mind of just under $40. That's it's a price point in the baby world where it's a sweet spot for a shower gift or products that enhance family life a little bit, and just make things better. That $40 price point is this kind of sweet spot. So that was always my goal, to get it just under $40. To do that, you've got to have your manufacturing cost about a quarter of that, and in order to get it down there, I actually use a company that's based here in the States, but they have their shadow office, I guess, over near Shanghai in China. And they have They have all the manufacturing contacts. So I deal with Dan in Houston, Texas, and then I've got a bilingual Chinese engineer that's assigned to my product. And then that bridge, I don't have to deal with from the US to China. They deal with that. So I'm sure I pay a small premium for that, but it is worth it so much to get my product at the price point that I need, where it's going to make it the most successful and hopefully generate jobs here in a different way, not manufacturing, but, creating our corporate office here and building it up. And, that's my dream. That's my goal.
Well, another thing you brought up is that going through the whole cycle of bringing a product to market is also inventory, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Not only you have to produce it, you got to get a package, but you have to have some kind of inventory so you can ship it around places. I mean, did you decide to bring that inventory back locally, or you wanted to drop ship that from the factory? With something like this, what did you guys decide?
So we have a storage facility, a climate-controlled storage facility down the road with 5,500 Beebos in it right now. That was what we decided to. That was the minimum order quantity that I could do. We're actually way less than that because I've been selling since February, which is when we launched. We decided to ship it over here and do all the fulfillment ourselves initially. We being me again. I'm basically a one man show right now, but it's an extremely busy yet rewarding life that I have at the moment. So we got the warehouse full, and we're shipping them out on a daily basis. Yesterday, I sent one to the North Pole, one to Hawaii, all these cool places that Beebos are going to all over the country. So, which leads us to, right now I'm only shipping in the US. That's right now. We've got all of the worldwide patents being put in place, but you've got to organically grow something like this and get exposure in the country where you are, just because of logistical reasons. I'm getting distribution inquiries from all around the world. Japan, I've had a few from Japan. It's a cool looking product. It's kind of techie. It's a bit geeky when you look at it. So Korea, Australia, Indonesia, all around Europe. Every day I'm getting asked for distribution agreements and pricing. But right now, I'm just, we've got to ramp up at a manageable rate, which is that supply-demand curve of tightrope that you've got to walk along, and grow at a rate that you can manage, which is a tricky one.
This is interesting. You just had, I thought about the other question I wanted to ask you earlier, but I'll do it now because I think it's a good segue. Because you said you were shipping some things yesterday to Hawaii and some other places, but what is your typical day as a DaddyPreneur? I know they call it Dadpreneur on your end, but I like DaddyPreneur better. But what does your day look like, man?
Well, the typical day is I wake up probably about quarter to 6, 5:30. First thing I do is I roll over and check my emails, see what's going on, as we all do. Usually get stressed out at that point because I realize I've got 24 hours worth of stuff to do in the next 12 hours. I'm a really hands-on dad. I try and balance work and family life at the level that makes sense. So I'm a big believer in giving my kids a nutritious breakfast and then shipping them off to school happy with a lunch that's full of nutritional foods. So, my mornings for the first hour is running around getting the kids ready with the help of my wife, cooking breakfast and driving them to school, dropping them off. And then as soon as I come home, it's Beebo time.
That's a standing O.
It's Beebo time. I dive straight into my emails. I'll start fulfilling orders. I'll rock and roll until 3:00 when I go get my kids. My wife sometimes does that if I'm way too busy. Get back by that time, 5-ish. My wife's kind of finishing up, so she takes over. I keep doing what I'm doing. try and get a bit of food in there, bit of drink, and then have some fun with my kids for an hour before they go to bed, and then it's back on it. It's 8:00. I'll start again, doing my thing and getting my to-do list prioritized for my next day, which is so important. Keeping that prioritization of to-dos, because if you don't, you get lost in the madness. So most nights I try and sit down and plan the next day of things that I know I have to get done, and then whatever else I can get done, great. But these are the things I need to get done the next day. So that's kind of a typical day, even on the weekends. So, it's crazy.
Wow. Well, I think, I want to thank you for the interview. This was really kind of engaging, and I wanted to hear exactly how a person like you would balance a couple kids and trying to do this entrepreneuring thing. Like I said, this is a little bit different than what we normally do here on Nerd Soccer. We usually do tech products, but when your publicist sent this to me, I was really interested in how you do all this balancing. I mean, I'm a parent as well, but I just kind of, I can't imagine it. So that's why I'm glad you went through your typical day. So we'll end the interview on, is there any advice or learnings that you want to tell a entrepreneur who's either, it could be a stay-at-home dad or a stay-at-home mom, quite frankly, right? What you're doing, any learnings or advice or encouragement you want to give people like that out there?
Yeah. One thing that's really important is intellectual property. That's basically the value of your company when it gets into the big things, when you get into the large scale of stuff. What's your IP? Is it protected? If not, I don't need you. I don't need your product. See you later. I'm going to copy it. So getting that put in place at the earliest point possible is probably my biggest piece of advice. And the quickest way of doing that is an NDA. When I first designed this one, whenever I was talking to anyone, friends, family, whatever, I'd get them to sign an NDA. I know it was sometimes a bit awkward and weird, but I don't care. I have got stacks of NDAs. You've got to cover yourself, because if you've got a great product, it's inevitable that it's going to try and be knocked off at one point. So the sooner you can pinch that and stop it, the better. So intellectual property is huge. Get on that day one, and then just get ready for a crazy ride. Because if you try and imagine how long it's going to take and how much money it's going to cost, triple it, quadruple it, and then you're probably getting somewhere close to what you really are, because the life of a entrepreneur, especially one that juggles life like I do, it's a crazy one, but it's a super fun one as well. It's really rewarding. And like I said yesterday, shipping them out to all these cool places, and knowing that people are getting this product and making life better with their little baby. We had if I could share a story real quick, we actually had a guy that he lost his arm to cancer when he was 4-year-old. He lost a battle with cancer, and he had to have his arm amputated from the shoulder, right down. He doesn't have his left arm anymore. Him and his wife just had a 3-month-old baby, and somebody had seen the Beebo, and they bought him one. And someone had posted pictures of him using it online just last week, and he's now able to participate in feeding time with his little 3-month-old girl, and just make that time quality and enjoy it with his baby. His mom sent me private messages and saying that she was crying her eyes out looking at the pictures, and thank you for inventing a product that like this, that is changing lives on a different level that you'd never know. So it's cool. I get stuff like that all the time, but that's one of my favorites recently. It's a moment. Yeah, it's a real
that makes it worth it, doesn't it? Actually, knowing that you help somebody, huh?
Oh yeah, it makes it, the 3.5 years of hard work, just boom, instantly worth it. I've helped this guy have these special moments with his little 3-month-old girl from a little product that I made in my garage to make my life easier. That's just where things grow. And we're having all kinds of cool stuff happen. People with disabilities are really gravitating towards the Beebo. People who have limited hand use, or elderly that get, that can't hold the bottle for a prolonged period of time, and all this stuff that I had no idea was going to happen is just, it's becoming amazing. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Just when you think that you have it all figured out, someone else is going to actually give you
Yeah.
another idea for you, right? So
Oh yeah.
that's pretty cool. So
Yeah.
anyway, well, I thank you again. This was a
Yeah.
great interview, and I appreciate your time again. But that was Martin Hill of Better Family Inc., who's proving it's possible to have life balance and the balance of an entrepreneur and a stay-home dad. So anyway, thanks for joining us, everyone. This is Greg Boyer, aka Social Greg, for Twitter, from the Nerd Stalker Media Network, where we believe in tech, startups, design, and you. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and be careful out there. Hey, Martin, thanks again. I appreciate it.
Cheers, man.